How and why we feel pain is a great question. Dr. Story, Springs Chiropractic Health here. I'm going to talk to you about the three phases of healing and how it relates to how we feel pain. So, most of the time we receive an injury of major, minor, or even sometimes a genetic problem that causes us pain. The first phase of healing and pain is the inflammatory phase. Inflammation. It's either caused by cell damage or it's caused from the pH balance, a change in the pH of the interstitial fluid. Some people call this the tissue space where the interstitial fluid resides. And that pH within that fluid has changed along with the cell damage, causing this inflammatory phase. The period at which that happens is anywhere from the time of the incident by the injury, major minor trauma, and 72 hours. Most of the time, doctors will tell patients that in that inflammatory phase, we want to use ice. And about 99% of the time, that's correct. 0 to 72 hours, try and apply ice to the area because we want to mitigate the pain. Not so much the process, but to decrease some of the inflammation so that the pain can lower, okay, or decrease, all right? But it's not so much that we want to get rid of this inflammation process because it's part of the healing process. And we want new cells to turn over and new collagen to form. However, there's a little bit of a problem when that happens as we enter the repair phase, which happens anywhere between 6 and 12 weeks from the time of incident. So the inflammation phase, only about 72 hours and can last even longer if you're not continually irritating the same injury. Okay, so let's say you have a shoulder injury and you're going to work and you're lifting up boulders, rocks, etc. You're maybe re-injuring that injury and you're going to maintain in that inflammatory phase for a period of time. Once we get into the repair phase does a few things. The first thing it does is it lays down this collagen, okay? New collagen that doesn't have any structure to it and is formed under very little stress. And so therefore it becomes weaker. And it's about 70% less strong, let's say, okay? 70% elastic or mobile and in strength as, say, new or the collagen that we're born with. Some people have described this new collagen being formed as scar tissue. And it's a very sloppy mess, if you will. Think of it as a mop. If you're just to lay down an old mop and put it on the floor, there's no form to it, and it just patchy strings all over together there. If you can imagine a sloppy mop, if you will. And that's what's happening with the new collagen being formed, is it just becomes a sloppy mess right on top of each other because there's no stresses on top of it to align it or to form it. Okay, so it's weaker, it's not as strong, and it's not as elastic. I always remember the movie Incredibles, Elastigirl. She's very elastic and she comes back to form and back to shape. Well, same thing here. It's not quite as elastic, so when it gets stretched out, when we do certain activities or activities of daily living, it gets stretched and then it's not going to come back quite as quickly or even to the same shape and form as it was before the injury, okay? So this is all part of the repair phase. Collagen being formed, but it's going to be not as strong and not as mobile. Let's talk about mobility for just a second here. If we look at mobility, whether it be the collagen fibers or even in a joint, whether it be a shoulder, a knee, a hip, all right, neck, the spine, all right, these are all joints that are within us, the human skeletal body, and what happens is that when we have an injury, there's not as much mobility within that joint. Now, because of the lack of mobility, there's something in our bodies called GABA. GABA is a neurotransmitter, okay, that sends the signal on motion to inhibit pain, to reduce pain, okay? And that's the great thing about mobility. But when we have an injury like this, the repair phase comes in, slapping down this new collagen, less strength to it, less elasticity, okay, not stretching quite as much, and the mobility goes down. So the joints and the collagen fibers aren't moving quite as well. Therefore, the pain increases because the mobility is not there, and the strength of the collagen fibers isn't there, okay? And that is part of the repair phase, is that it's just not as strong, not as mobile, okay? That's the main gist of this. Now, the question I have for you is, how do we get back the strength, or how can we get back the strength in the mobility of those joints and the collagen fibers? And it's threefold: active ranges of motion, passive ranges of motion, and joint motion, okay? Because we want to try and provide stress. Stress is what aligns those collagen fibers back into play, okay, becoming stronger and increasing the mobility. The other part of the repair phase has to do with the nerves. The peripheral nerves, those are the ones closest to the tissue, are also damaged. And now their threshold is a lot less. Meaning when you go to do something, any activity that you've done before the injury and it didn't really bother you, and now you go to do it, and now it's painful. Why? Because the threshold of the nerves are much more sensitive. So the sensitivity of the nerves increases because of the nerve damage. Okay? So we've got new crappy collagen forming and peripheral nerve damage, okay, on top of it. And that's all part of what's causing the pain in the repair phase. And how we correct that is through active ranges of motion, passive ranges of motion, and joint motion, providing those stresses back into those collagen fibers to align, reducing the threshold of the nerve fibers, okay, and therefore increasing the ability of the person to do their activities of daily living or the things that they did before the injury, okay? All making sense here. Therefore, when we apply the physical medicine, it's going to increase the strength and mobility of the area of complaint. And again, when we have the increase in strength and elasticity and the mobility increases, now we have GABA, the neurotransmitter, coming into the body and reducing the pain. And that's how physical medicine and a chiropractor like myself does all three. We provide joint motion, which is as good, if not better, than the active range of motion and passive ranges of motion, which we also apply as a chiropractor. So we do all three parts of the physical medicine that are applying the stresses and factors to reduce the pain and increase the healing within the repair phase. Now, if somebody doesn't see a chiropractor and doesn't get this physical medicine performed on them, okay, they go into the remodeling phase. And this can last up to months, 12 months in fact. So if you're in the repair phase, you haven't fixed it, 12 weeks go by, you're still in pain, still in discomfort, and now we get into the remodeling phase where there's no more collagen inducing or reproducing in the body, but it's just supporting by the daily activities. And the remodeling phase, it just becomes a permanent issue. That's basically what the remodeling phase is. It just becomes more permanent, okay? And therefore, a person may feel pain for months and then now years because it never really got fixed. It really not got applied with a physical medicine. And that is the importance of seeing someone like myself, a chiropractor, in order for you to heal quicker. The result of getting the physical medicine is so that you can heal quicker and get back to doing the things you want to do that you did before the injury. So, These are the three phases of healing and how we feel pain. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you'd like to reach out to me, this is Dr. Story, Springs Chiropractic Health. I can be reached at 719-598-5000, or please feel free to go to my website, springschiro.health.com. All the best to you.